for the hardest-hitting show in talk radio. The true progressive voice since 2012. This is Southpaws.
And welcome to Southpaws on the Pacifica Radio Network. We are the leaders of the revolution. I'm Darren Gibson.
And I'm Jack Prince.
And Jack, we have a few things to talk about. I don't have a whole lot of notes this week, but we need to talk about the attack on Paul Pelosi. We definitely have to talk about what happened with the University of Michigan MSU game this past weekend.
Absolutely.
It is some horrible stuff, and we've got, speaking of horrible, 4 Hammer Time winners this week. A lot of it related to the Paul Pelosi attack. We'll give you all the details when we get to that segment. In the meantime, a reminder that you can follow us on social media by going to facebook.com/Southpaws Radio Show. You can follow us on Twitter at Southpaws Radio, at least for the time being before I cancel that. Who knows when that'll happen. You can follow us on Tumblr at southpawsradioshow.tumblr.com. You can follow us on YouTube by doing a search for Southpaws Radio, and you can become a patron of the show by going to patreon.com/Southpaws Radio. You can listen to the show anytime at Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Podcast Addict, Podvine, and Pandora by doing a search for Southpaws. Once you found our logo, you found us. We send links to our weekly episodes to our Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, and YouTube accounts. You can listen to us on Global Community Radio Channel 1 every Saturday night at 11 Eastern, and you can listen to us on great Pacifica stations, including KCEI in Taos, New Mexico, KZGM in Kabul, Missouri, and KEPJ in San Antonio, Texas. So be sure to listen to us there. Well,
right.
How do you want to start out, Jack? Do you want to talk about the football game, or do you want to talk about Paul Pelosi?
It's football season. We can start there, but I do want to add to the list that you've already mentioned a topic that I have been vexed by all week, and that is the proliferation of political involvement by religions, the Christian church in this case, in our country. And I sent an article to you. I don't know if you had a chance to see it. The headline indicates that they are breaking the law, LAW, more than at any other time, and without a lot of pushback. So I live next to a church that's wall-to-wall on the lawn with signs to vote no on Proposal 3. And like I said, it's driving me up a wall. So if we could get that in somewhere today, but football is a good place to kick off, no pun intended.
Well, I'll tell you what, I missed this, but I saw the replay of it. You couldn't help it because it was being played all over the country. After Michigan beat Michigan State in football, by the way, in Ann Arbor at U of M Stadium.
Right.
So after the game, now this took place, correct me if I'm wrong here, this fight took place about in half an hour after the finish of the game. Am I correct in hearing that?
Somewhere close to half an hour. That's correct. Yeah.
Wow. So U of M was on the field celebrating their win. Of course, they won the Paul Bunyan Award, which is the trophy that's exchanged between Michigan State and U of M every year when they play football. Of course, when Michigan plays, I believe it's Minnesota, isn't it? Is that the Brown Jug?
That's the Brown Jug, yeah. That's
yes, it is. Yep. So these rivalries have been going on for decades. And this, however, is something else. To have a U of M player surrounded by several state players in the tunnel and then physically assaulted a half hour after the finish of this game, there's something wrong with this country, and there's something wrong, quite frankly, with MSU's football program.
Yeah, you know, Darren, there is a correlation between the Pelosi attack on one end of the country and the attack that took place right here in our state, in Ann Arbor. And I have so many misconceptions that I have viewed, and I want to start with the first one, and that is that this violent attack is indicative of football being a violent sport.
No, it isn't.
No, it's not. I know it appears that way, but there's no more emotion in football than there's a basketball game or a badminton game. Of course, there's passion. There's passion in competition. Mm-hmm. But the idea that this is almost acceptable, you can expect these kinds of outbursts of violence because they just played 4 quarters of a violent game. I'm not buying it. I played the game. I never was more energized or motivated to hurt somebody on a field because I was playing a game of football. Never thought, boy, I just wish I could hide in the parking lot and jump a couple of these opposing players and take off a weapon and hit them in the head with it. Never crossed my mind. Never in a million years. And the other aspect is, oh, well, there's steroids now. The programs are just in a sea of steroids, so this is a physical reaction, and no, ain't buying that either. Not buying it whatsoever. What we talked about off the air, Darren, this last week, I think is prescient in that we're talking about another segment, another institution in our society, in our culture, that now has seen violence that's unprecedented. A violent act that, and I've been watching football for 50 years, I've never seen an attack on an opposing player in any contest, let alone football, as violent, as aggressive, as I guess in some aspect just vicious like that one. I think it's a safe saying to say that was the most vicious, violent attack against a player in Big Ten sports, maybe in history. I've never seen anything that equates it. I've seen people in the midst of the game swing. I've even seen some kicks, and I've seen benches unload. That's different than meditating. You said this was a half hour after the game, after your adrenaline has settled back down into its places and you're cooled off physically and emotionally. You are in a tunnel and you wait till there's an isolated player, 9, 10, I think it was 10 players, assault him, circle him, punch, kick, hit with a helmet. That is unprecedented. And we're looking now, aren't we, Darren? We're looking in our society for things that say it's getting worse. Mm-hmm. And the old conservative tonic to that, antidote to that, well, we've always had warm weather. Well, we never had 10 years in a row where it got consecutively warmer every year, but that's a small print. They just run off this platitude, it's always been warm. Or in this case, there's always been violence in sports and particularly football. This is a sign of a worsening condition in our country. Now, how does that relate to Pelosi? I think it's the most brazen attack, political attack in our time. I know there was a senator attacked with a cane back before the Civil War. Not to draw a parallel there, a Civil War now, a Civil War then, but the truth is there's a spirit out there, and people all look at each other and know it's there, that people are on edge, and there's liable to be a violent outbreak no matter where you go. Driving in the road, sitting in a church pew, at a restaurant, at a concert, in a park, in your own home, sleeping in your own home.
Yeah.
So that's the parallel between these two, and it's a bigger worry to me as we look at the cultural phenomena of violence, communication as an answer, as a way that people think it will save this country, that politically that's all that works anymore is violence. I'm not alone. I see people and talk to people that know it's there, they feel it, and it's not getting better.
No, it isn't. And we're going to focus on the game in just for this little bit here. We'll tie everything together eventually. I want to kind of focus keeping it on the game.
Sure.
Now, with the game itself, I can say that probably the worst thing prior to this that I ever saw happened at the National Football League, the pro level, where the guy took his helmet off and swung it at the other guy's head and connected. in the end zone. And I forget what game that was. Wasn't Pittsburgh involved in it, the Steelers? I don't remember. Yeah. Okay. So there is a precedent for that in the pro leagues. This is absolutely unprecedented, not just in the Big Ten, but in all of collegiate sports. The NCAA, doesn't matter what division. I don't think this has ever happened before where players were waiting for a rival in the tunnel and basically jumped him. Now, I know there's state fans that are saying, well, he must have said something. Does that excuse the behavior? No.
Far from it. What could you possibly say that would warrant 9 people jumping you? And what's even more worrisome is that there were more than 9 people. There were dozens of people standing in that room, all of them looking at this action going on. Hate to even call it action. Assault. All watching that. Nobody saying stop it, leave him alone. Nobody. Not a single green and white uniform said that. And so I guess we're looking at a bigger phenomenon than just a couple of, do I dare say, competitive athletes that, no. This is a different scene even than what you just relayed in the end zone. That was on the field of play. That was, and you can be involved and get hit in such a way that you're going to automatically react in violence. And if I'm not mistaken, the player that he hit had his helmet on. Isn't that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is protective.
Yeah.
Without that what I've heard just through some football people is that this kid was in bad shape. His one eye was closed from the contact. Now, I haven't seen any pictures on Facebook or anywhere. The ramifications, supposedly he had nasal injury and so forth. But you don't get hit in the head that many times and not have some serious damage. He could have been killed.
He could have been. And we should mention that the University of Michigan police are investigating this as a criminal matter. The Big Ten is investigating this, and I would be shocked if the NCAA was not investigating this as well.
And the Big Ten, unfortunately, the Big Ten is headed by a grad of MSU, who I think has a son playing for MSU. That should not be a conflict of interest, but, it's not ideal.
Yeah, you had mentioned that to me off air, but when we were talking about this. So, yeah, that's another point. I'm glad you brought that up. But, Jack, this kind of harkens back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, not even a little bit into the 80s, even as far back into the 50s, 40s. You know where you saw this kind of behavior, and it wasn't among the participants, it was among the crowd going after the participants? Professional wrestling.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
There are legendary stories of wrestlers like Blackjack Mulligan getting stabbed by a fan because he was such a heel, and people bought it. Ole Anderson got cut. Roddy Piper got stabbed. They turned Roddy Piper babyface about 2 weeks after the stabbing because they were afraid for his life. And that's a scripted, predetermined, athletic, what's the word? Not contest, I guess, exhibition. There you go.
Yeah.
We're talking about a full contact sport where you're supposed to just leave it out on the field. Isn't that what your coaches told you when you were playing, Jack? Leave it all out on the field.
Exactly. And I appreciate the passion that's aroused for a professional wrestling match. Mm-hmm. That's part of the entertainment.
Yes.
But it's a little different genre of athletic endeavor on the collegiate level. The founders that started athletics in college, the first accumulation of humans that were studying college level material, they didn't have a team. They didn't have merchandise. They didn't have sponsors worth millions of dollars. They were there to crack books, and their pursuit was hard study. And they came up with the idea of relieving some of that tension. I know this sounds corny, and thus college athletics was born. Mm-hmm. And with that, they initially crowned it with a stress on sportsmanship. They talked about the honor given to the athletes, going back to the early Olympics in Greece. That was as much a part of the game as winning and losing. And college athletics was a place where sportsmanship was absolutely in the main arena. Now, the professional wrestling, that's a professional sport. There's people making money. There's men 30, some even older. It's a little bit different. I know people that go to Little League games that have seen parents beat referees to the point of hospitalization in fourth, fifth grade contest.
Yeah.
I mean, it's incredible. The violence that's out there knows no firewall. It's spilling into one of our most cherished institutions, that is sports, and for me, collegiate sports and collegiate football.
Yeah.
It's sad. It's heartaching.
And one of the things, I'm glad you mentioned that as well, something that I've read from the Michigan High School Athletic Association, and it's not just there, it's happening in every single state. Every state high school athletic association is having problems finding officials because of parents, quite truthfully. Parents getting mad, parents going off on them, parents assaulting officials. Where does it end? Does it end?
Parents that go into the school board rooms, that's a whole other topic.
Oh, yeah,
But
that's true.
they believe that they need to get their agenda through, and violence is the best way to perpetuate it. We used to have the idea of statesmanship. We used to have the idea of the hardest competitor wins just on their effort. Now violence is an additive to help you get what you're looking for. Whether you're in a PTA meeting, whether you're a parent who's got dreams of Johnny becoming an all-star, a major league player when he's 8 years old, and you just send him to the summer camp and you spend all kinds of money so he could learn how to throw a curveball, and by God, you want to make sure he wins this contest and yada yada. I'm sickened. It's lost the whole beauty of sport. I coached on Division III college football, Division II, and Division I. And I've told people maybe the most enjoyable sporting coaching I ever experienced was little kids, young kids. As you go up in the sport and as society's putting more and more on winning and more on making money by winning, we're losing the beauty of this endeavor in our country.
I have to agree with you. And I'm just going to repeat something that I posted on my personal Facebook, and I'm going to read some comments to that post. Do you want to know why society is more violent now than ever before? It's 3 simple words. Donald John Trump. Period. Right. End of story.
That's right.
You know, you've got the orange twitler saying on camera, oh, kick that son of a bitch out. Punch him in the face. I'll pay for your attorney. I could shoot somebody in the middle of Fifth Avenue and my ratings would go up. He foments all of this anger and violence, especially by conservatives, and unfortunately it's starting to spill over into some of the more centrist, I guess I would say, people, because, you know, what do you expect people to do when they're confronted, I guess is the best word to use.
See, and it started with lies. He gets people convinced that the election's been stolen, that we're losing the country, that Marxists are taking over our country, and you stand up at a podium and you say, if you want to save our country, you have to fight. That's word for word what he said hours before. Innocent guards were killed and hundreds trampled. And that's the result. And I think the result of Pelosi and the result even of this attack, you said it all comes from a headwater. 3 words describe it, and that is Donald John Trump.
Yep, exactly. The first comment that I got to that post, I'm not going to mention any names here. The first one said, I have a conservative coworker that was bemoaning the fact that no one obeys rules anymore. When I pointed out that it went into overdrive when they politicized COVID-19 measures and proudly did not follow any of the rules, and now no one thinks they need to follow any, he kind of looked hopeless, was really quiet, and wouldn't look directly at me for quite a while.
Sure.
Because he got called out on it.
It's true.
That sums it up right there. You know, another friend of ours that we talked about before we started recording today, he responded, "Violence is certainly rampant in our society. However, saying the society is more violent now than ever before just doesn't measure up to U.S. history. In the 19th century alone, the U.S. was wiping out hundreds of thousands of indigenous people, forcibly displacing them and making their children attend so-called boarding schools," which we've talked about on this show at length. One of the very few shows that discusses that topic. Black people were still enslaved for much of the 19th century, even after the Civil War, when white citizen councils terrorized black people and Jim Crow laws imposed all sorts of restriction, discrimination, and state violence against black people. And we might as well just throw Tulsa in there from 1920. You know,
Sure.
This is just a small sample, but genocide, slavery, and Jim Crow caused way more harm than what exists now. That I disagree with.
I disagree completely with it. It
Yes.
certainly is the headwaters of our violence. There's no question about it.
Yeah,
It's been in our DNA,
but
it is now much closer to every home.
yep,
You can talk about the genocide of the Native Americans. It's horrific. But we are looking at now, instead of a battlefield in Wyoming, we're looking at battlefields in our classrooms where students are suffering psychologically like they never have been before. They're afraid they're going to get killed at school. School.
I'm going to finish his reply here real quick.
Go ahead.
Last sentence, one difference is that these were state policies or institutionalized violence, which is different than the random violence by individuals or domestic terrorist groups. There's one other difference, and it just occurred to me. Back in the 19th century, there was no broadcasting, no radio, no TV, no internet. What's the difference now? You can see violence 24 hours a day, 7 days a week by either turning on the tube, listening to the radio, or just going onto your phone to YouTube or TikTok or, you know, any of the other video websites, and you can watch it on demand.
Yeah. And you can get your hands on weapons that are much more efficient at killing and slaughter than ever before in history.
Yep. Another friend of ours posted this. She responded, "Katie Porter and Jon Stewart discussed this on his podcast. More illegal guns are on the streets now, and not enough people in power will do something about it. Too many people whose only power is having a gun, that is also part of the problem." Which I agree in part. But still, there's still the underlying violence. The gun is a tool to execute that violence. But other tools have been used. For example, with Paul Pelosi, a hammer. You know, we need to look at the root causes of it. The root cause, plain and simple, is Donald Trump.
Yeah.
He started this.
Yeah.
He did. My mother
Violence
called
is
it in 2015 when he started to run. You know?
Yeah, violence is accepted now as a way to achieve your ends. The means, we used to say, the means justify the ends, or the end justifies the means. We're looking now at, by his lies, by his complete propagandic line of BS, that things are so critical now that the teachers are pedophiles grooming children into homosexual activity, that the sins of the vice president and Pelosi in that building are so great that they're stealing your liberty. They're stealing all of that. Grandstanding is responsible for these acts of violence that we see today. The leading cause of death now for adolescents in the United States is not cancer. It's not heart problem. It's not bicycle accidents. It's being shot with guns. The QAnon, the genre of Trumpism that may be the most bizarre, has incident after incident right here in this state of people that go home, men that go home, shoot all their kids and their wife because of some QAnon madness that tells them they're evil or what have you.
Yeah.
Religion and politics right now has never been more tied at the hip And religions, good people do good things, bad people do bad things. Good people do bad things because of religion. And when you convince people that Obama is the Antichrist, that Nancy Pelosi drinks the blood of babies or what have you, and God wants to bring judgment, these guys think they're really righteous in going in and hitting a helpless man in the head. He was going to drag Nancy out with broken kneecaps into the Congress like some kind of political patriotic hero.
And by the way, just to mention, oh my God, yeah, we'll talk about the Paul Pelosi thing. The thing is that a lot of these conservative religious nuts think God is going to clean things up, and Donald Trump is going to be the tool that he uses to do the cleaning. Yeah, Donald Trump is a tool, all right. Jeez, the truer words have never been spoken there.
If progressives in town are writing about the fact that the United States has always been violent, okay, and it certainly has, what you have to realize is Western civilization has been violent. People from Europe came over here, and they were violent. And you want to know what really is the cornerstone? It's not the red, white, and blue American flag. It's God. God handles all of his issues with violence, unparalleled violence. The European settlers had that in the back of their mind. They're just heathens here. They deserve to be annihilated. So you have genocide. The blacks, they're just heathens. The Calvinistic, unchosen human being is a vessel for destruction. Not my words. That's the Holy Bible. And God killed every single person once, flooded them all like rats in a barrel, started over again, killed them again, going to kill them another time, killed his own son, supposedly, killed people, firstborn children in Egypt, slaughtered Amalekites, Philistines, on and on and on and on, and told the Israeli generals to grind their bones into dust. No human general has ever been that vicious. He said over and over again, vengeance is mine. Yep. He has more justification for violence than any Republican ever had. The worst motivation for violence in our country is the Western God, Yahweh. And that's the book. They'll tell you. That's the book they stand on, the Bible, and that's their cornerstone. And that's what justifies their violence. Whether it's taking black humans, putting chains on them, and making them into a work instrument, that's all justified by Christianity. All. If God can kill his enemies, why can't we? Especially if our enemies are the same enemies that are God's enemies. That's a double bonus.
Yep. By the way, women not working, women staying docile to their husbands, docile to all men. They must obey all men. That's religion too, folks, because that's in the Bible too. Oh, yeah. My God. Jeez. Before we get on the religion stuff here, let me go ahead and read the list of football players from Michigan State who have been suspended, and it's up to 8 now. The original 4 were redshirt sophomore linebacker Tank Brown, redshirt sophomore cornerback Kari Grump, junior defensive back Angelo Gross, and true freshman defensive end Zion Young. But you, Jack, had mentioned earlier in the day when the suspensions first started getting announced that you saw Jacoby Windman throw punches or hold the guy while punches were being thrown, and you were wondering where the suspension was, and you called the athletic director for Michigan State University and apparently gave them a piece of your mind, and guess what happens? While we're on the phone talking about this, you tell me that there's a flash on the screen, 4 more Michigan State players suspended. One of them being senior linebacker Jacoby Windman. So yeah. I'm going to give you credit for making that happen.
I don't believe that I solely was responsible. I'll say this, though. I think they were hiding him. I think he's a week-to-week player of the week defensively for the team, just an outstanding defensive football player. And I don't think Tuck wanted to have him go, even though he was central and visible with the very first videos that were released. How they just conveniently missed that, and then maybe hoped that it would die down and they wouldn't have to suspend anybody else, I think was, again, part of Tuck's strategy.
Yeah.
And you know, Darren, if you watched any of that game, I don't know if you watched the Michigan State game, I've never seen a coach so out of control with anger on the sideline. I don't mean Bobby Knight throwing a chair across. I mean the entire game that was registered in Tuck's face. And that carried right down the runway into the locker room, where he swung at a spectator in the tunnel. And then that was sitting in the midst of that locker room where every one of those players fed off of it. And I don't care how many games you think he can win for you. I wouldn't send my son there. I would not send my son to play for the man. And I'm hearing more and more parents, even Michigan State fans, saying there's something wrong with the whole culture on that football team.
Yep. This may not be too funny, but you know, the way you describe Mel Tucker, the way he acted on the sidelines, reminds me of John Goodman's character in the movie Revenge of the Nerds. Did you ever see that movie?
No.
Oh, my God. So after the nerds have defeated the Alpha Betas, I should say Lambda defeated the Alpha Betas to win control of the University Student Council, the coach, played by John Goodman, rolls up in his little golf cart, and all of his players are all dejected there on stage. And he says, I want you and all the other girls to come to the locker room now. So they all go congregate in there, and he starts in just giving them, look at you. You guys got whipped by a bunch of nerds. Nerds! He's screaming, and, well, if I was you, I'd do something to get my manhood back. And so they go and trash the Lambda house. I'm saying, you got to watch that. That's a good movie.
Yeah. Oh, no, hey, listen, he was foaming at the mouth. And there are coaches that get upset. I mean, I coach with some who now are very, very successful in the amount of games they've won in Division I football.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of anger. One of my favorite stories was a high school locker room. The players go in, and the coach comes in at halftime, and he's talking about, got to do this, got to do that, got to hit harder, and kicks a helmet off of the floor, flies across the room, hits his star quarterback in the head, and rips open a big cut over his eye. Had to go to the hospital. And his quarterback never touched the field again. He loses the game.
Wow.
So he gets into the locker room after the game, got down on a knee and apologized, tears in his eyes, to his players, and said, if there's a lesson today that will help you as men, it's that I'm apologizing. I want you to remember that for that act of anger. Now, that wasn't meditated violence. But
that was
the point
just
is
rage.
that we need men leading our young athletes who have control of their emotions, that can be passionate and inspire you, but won't go crazy and attack another person.
Yeah. Let me mention the last three players who have been suspended. True freshman cornerback Malcolm Jones, redshirt junior defensive back Justin White, and senior defensive end Brandon Wright. So there they all are, all suspended from playing, at least until the investigation is over, which leads to the next question. How long do you think this investigation will continue? Will they try and wrap it up fast?
No, I think they're going to dull our senses to it and stretch it out, not to a degree that looks unreasonable, but they're going to keep turning stones over. When you could pass judgment on this within 10 minutes, just looking at the video, which doesn't lie. They won't, before they make any judgments, because no matter what judgment they make, they know they're going to infuriate somebody. Either it's too lenient or it's too strong.
That's true.
Just want to kind of dull the senses. Let more games come into view. You know, you got a game Saturday, and everybody's attention gets onto that game. There'll be new controversy. There always is after that game. But they will never bury what I saw took place in that video and hide that and put a rose on it. It was ugly. I hope there is prosecution. I know a lot of people all know don't let there be prosecution. No, it's assault. It's a criminal act.
Yep.
You can't let it go on like that. Get away.
Yep. I'll go on record. At this point, I think the NCAA needs to suspend Michigan State's football program for 1 full year, at minimum.
That would not be extreme.
And then put them on probation for another 5 additional afterwards.
Yeah.
All right,
and if there was anybody in the Republican Party that had any gonads, they'd stand up and say, enough is enough. The political violence that took place in San Francisco, we've got to calm the rhetoric. We've got to calm it from Hannity to Green to Bobart. We have got to stop inciting this kind of hatred against our political opponent. Or you're going to, the next time the guy's dead. This man was the husband of the Speaker of the House, the longest reigning person in that position, I believe, as a Democrat, Nancy Pelosi. Yeah. You may have some disagreements with her, but imagine what if the wife of the President of the United States, whether at Camp David or on a vacation sometime, is almost killed. Is that the country that we live in? Yeah, and instead of saying that, they're going around telling people it was a gay affair, laughing about it, joking about it. Incredible. Now, that I've never seen before. If that's not a conducive to violence, I've never seen it like that. Have you? And no. You've been watching politics longer than I have.
Yeah, I have never experienced anything like this, ever.
Raising money to get them off on bail?
And yet there are still people out there that say, both sides. It's not both sides. It is not both sides. You want to know where this all started, folks? I'm just going to tell you. I'm going to lay it out bare for you. This all started when Rush Limbaugh hit the airwaves using the word libtard, feminazi, and just downing anybody on the left. And this happened 40 years ago. And it's just gotten worse ever since. Yeah. It really has.
Right.
I blame Rush Limbaugh. I blame Ronald Reagan. I blame Donald
Alex
Trump.
Jones.
Huh?
Yeah. And Alex Jones, I'll mix him in there.
Yep. Sean Hannity, you name him. Bill O'Reilly, Sean Hannity, you name him, Tucker.
Imagine a man who made his career out of lying about the deaths of young elementary students in front of their parents for years. Years.
This is now the guy that's going to lose it all because of those lies. He's going to lose it all. He has to pay out $1 billion. He's done. He's toast.
As you said, it's a false equivalency to say there's the same on the left as on the right. And it's always been there on the right, whether it was McCarthy or Joe McCarthy and his hatred that ended up in the killing of people. Trump now has it to a new degree. And we're looking at a legacy of hatred, of violence, that threatens now our democracy.
Yeah.
You told me they arrested some boogaloo boys here in the state, right?
They arrested one in Detroit and one in Ohio.
They weren't driving around looking for a place to go deer hunting, I can tell you that.
No, they were bringing parts in to convert rifles over to fully automatic guns. Full automatic. Machine guns. Illegal possession of a machine gun is one of the charges against one of them.
Yeah.
You know, this is...
They have planned for the political season ahead.
Oh, I know. It really is. You know, since we've been talking about Paul Pelosi and the attack against him, let's go ahead with our next segment.
Stop! Hammer time!
Oh, yeah, it's hammer time. It is time to drop the hammer on the douchebag of the week. We've got 4 winners for you this week, and all 4 of them have some sort of ties in with the whole Paul Pelosi thing. So let's go to winner number 1 this week, the chief twit himself, Elon Musk. He wins for his now deleted post claiming that Paul Pelosi knew his attacker and that the attacker was his male prostitute, which in my notes here is a total horse lie.
Yep.
You know, and people believe this, and I don't know why. I guess because they only watch Fox Propaganda Channel. They don't watch anything else.
Yeah. It's an echo chamber.
It is. The way I describe it, it's cognitive dissonance and confirmation bias all wrapped up into one little bundle of an echo chamber.
That's it.
It really is. Winner number 2 this week, Arizona gubernatorial candidate Kari Lake, cuckoo, for her comments about the attack on Paul Pelosi. Jack, I've got the audio of it. This is going to run about 2 minutes. This is courtesy of NBC News. This was Kari Lake answering a question that was asked of her from a reporter about school security and guns in the schools. Take a listen to this. You're not going to believe this.
Do you plan to have it in your budget to increase school safety, and how so?
I believe with the last budget, Wendy, not if I'm right, was about $50 million put into increasing school safety with school resource officers, armed officers, to make sure we're protecting our kids. It is not impossible to protect our kids at school. They act like it is. Nancy Pelosi, well, she's got protection when she's in D.C. Apparently her house doesn't have a lot of protection. But if our lawmakers have protection, if our lawmakers can have protection, if our politicians can have protection, if our athletes, then certainly the most important people in our lives, our children, should have protection. I do want to get to the very bottom of who made the decision to mask our kids. Fauci, CDC, I think the school teachers union was in on it. I want to find out who made these decisions to shut our businesses down and shut our churches down. I want to have a commission to investigate COVID and how it was handled in this state, and hand up any civil or criminal charges that need to be made, because we're not going to just forget what happened when our lives got turned upside down, when our businesses got shut down, when our grandparents and parents are forced to die alone in a nursing home, when our people who worked so hard were forced out of a job because they didn't want to get a shot that their boss wanted them to get. So I want to find out where a lot of these decisions were made, who was responsible. And if there is a way, and if there was some criminal activity, I think we need to look at that. Absolutely. This wasn't just some little petty theft. This was a theft of our freedom, our lives. This was the theft of our health. And I'm all for it. And I think that's why they're fighting against me.
No, they're fighting against you, Kari, because I'll just be blunt. You're a period. End of story.
You know, I'm amazed. She has not an ounce of empathy, compassion for a man who was in a critical condition at the time she was speaking. Yet she believes a witch hunt, a literal witch hunt, is necessary to track down those culprits that put those masks on. Masks that had no function, right, Darren? They weren't stopping.
That's what they say.
Yeah, there wasn't any, even though there's over 1 million people dead now, there was no virus that was being contained behind that mask. No, on and on and on, all the grandstanding, all the righteous indignation, but she slipped right over a man fighting for his life in the hospital with a hole in the top of his head from a crazed right-winger. A crazed right-winger. Forget all this crap about there being equal ideologies on the right and from the left.
Nope.
I didn't hear any from the left.
Nope.
I don't know any from the left that says to attack innocent people. Here's the bottom line, why she wins it. This is a woman that loves the spotlight.
Yeah.
She's got a tremendous appearance on air. People who know her, like the manager of the station, who I think fired her.
Yeah. Oh, you saw Inside Edition last night,
yeah,
huh?
said pretty succinctly, she just loves the spotlight. She just loves the spotlight. Well, you can't get more of a spotlight faster than to jump alongside of the orange baboon. And that's what she did. And the principles and the issues mean nothing. She's getting what she wants, power, and a guaranteed block of voters because she can say Donald J. Trump.
Yep. You know, Kari Lake used to be a news reporter and a news anchor for the Fox affiliate in Phoenix before she decided to, well, she said that she quit. No, she got fired.
She got fired.
I'm pretty sure. They said they were happy to see her go. So she must have been one of those prima donnas, you know.
Oh, hell yes.
You know? So, yeah, let's get back to our list here. Winner number 2, Kari Lake. Oh, God. You know what Kari Lake is? I'll use some of Ric Flair's words from the 80s. A full sweater and an empty head. And yes, you can send the hate mail to me for saying that.
Well,
but I'm telling the truth.
These conservative female mouthpiece with the skirt on, and they call her Trump with high heels. My moniker is simple. We've talked about how if you want to throw up mustard and water, something about that.
Yeah, you mix mustard and water and drink it, and it'll make you throw up.
And to me, she's another glass of mustard and water.
Yep. There you go. Winner number 3 this week also comes from Arizona. Representative Paul Gosar. Cuckoo! Hits it again. I have this story. This is from the God account at dailydot.com. This is October 28th. Listen to this, Jack. Republican Representative Paul Gosar was filmed by undercover reporters offering praise and support when they said they had shot at migrants who had crossed the border into the U.S. and even potentially struck one with a bullet. But so they told him a lie, and he bought it, hook, line, and sinker. And they got it on video. In response to this quote-unquote confession, the far-right congressman told the reporters, quote, "This country needs you," end of quote, and may have insinuated that more violence like this is imminent from other folks. Video footage of this alarming exchange was posted to Twitter by advocacy journalist and Democratic consultant Lauren Windsor, who partnered with an unnamed man to catch Gosar giving his approval for attempted murder. The man in the video says, quote, "I'm actually a huge fan of everything you've done for election integrity and everything." So they're buttering him up before they lead him down the primrose path to get whacked here. Continuing, he says, quote, "I'm just especially protecting our southern border. My family's ranch is down in Yuma. We have illegals on our land a lot. We've shot at them, and you know our Second Amendment rights to stand our ground. I'm worried that the Democrats are going to send me to jail, if I hit one of them," end of quote. Here's Gosar's response, quote, "They have more rights than we do," end of quote. No, that's not it. Oh, my God. What an idiot. Obviously, this is completely untrue and also a horrifying response to someone admitting that they have repeatedly attempted to murder human beings who are seeking out a tolerable life or fleeing from probable death in their countries of origin. But it gets even worse when the reporter pretends to admit that he thinks he hit somebody. The man goes on, quote, "Yeah, it's like I can't shoot them when, as they cross the border and stuff. I mean, I think I might have hit someone. And I'm like, I was distressed about it for a week," end of quote. Gosar is seen on video nodding to this guy, just nodding his head up and down like one of them bobbleheads. After the undercover reporter thanks him for his work on the border and election integrity, the congressman praises and encourages the murderous behavior. Gosar tells him, quote, "Say a prayer because this country needs you. There's a bunch of people that are ready to go into action," end of quote. Well, that leads to the next questions. What people? What action? Considering the fact that Gosar has remained staunchly pro-Trump, this brings to mind the time that Trump said that all migrants should be gunned down. A woman, presumably Lauren Windsor, then interrupts to ask Gosar if he would support pardons for people who murder undocumented immigrants in this manner. By the way, this interview all took place as Gosar was at an event supporting Kari Lake. Here's how he responded. Quote, "Well, I tell you, if Kari is going to do what she says she's going to do, charge the emergency order out of the state of Arizona, and she puts the National Guard on the border, I guarantee you're going to have a response," end of quote. Lake has alarmed democracy fans across the nation with her campaign promises and her staunch adherence to the false narrative that the 2020 presidential election was stolen from Trump. Along with promising to activate the state's National Guard to protect the border against desperate families, people are worried about what she will do if elected when November 2024 comes about and Joe Biden wins again. Journalist and lawyer Dean Obadiah, in a CNN article, warned this, quote, Lake is basically telling anyone who will listen that she is prepared to use the levers of government to overturn the will of the people. End of quote.
Yep.
It's the truth. You know?
It is. You know what I hear when you say Gosar?
Yeah.
That was the big, monstrous demon dog in the Ghostbusters. Remember? That was
Yes,
Gosar.
that's right. I am the gatekeeper. I am the keymaster. What a great movie.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. So winner number 3, Paul Gosar. And winner number 4, somebody that you and I were never fooled by, Tulsi Gabbard, who has gone absolutely, totally, completely off the deep end.
Well, either that or she didn't move at all.
No.
That's who she is.
Yep.
You know, you scrape away all the BS, that's who she always was, and we knew it.
Yeah. Tulsi's getting the award this week because she was campaigning last weekend for Michigan Republican gubernatorial candidate Tudor Dixon.
Ugh.
Yeah. At the same time that Barack Obama was in Detroit stumping for Gretchen Whitmer.
You want some more mustard and water? Ted Cruz was in Michigan yesterday campaigning for Mr. Gibbs.
Yeah,
Mr.
I saw
Gibbs,
that.
Mr. Gibbs.
I'm surprised that Cruz wasn't running for the border after the last power outage in Texas.
Yeah, right.
There's a coward there.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
You got to be in trouble if you need Cruz to come and campaign for you.
And apparently Mike Pence is coming up here. They're scraping the bottom of the barrel, Jack, and I believe, isn't Trump supposed to be coming up here to try and get Tudor in bed with him or whatever the hell he's going to do?
Plunger in the toilet. Trump.
He is the toilet. He's an orange commode. Jeez.
Oh.
But I am probably going to be in Ann Arbor on Saturday because guess who's coming to town to get out the vote for Democrats?
A real politician.
And absolutely the real politician, the only real politician, Senator Bernie Sanders, independent of Vermont.
Yep.
And I'm trying to get press credentials for it. If I can't get press credentials, I'm going to go anyway. Because
that'd be a treat. I wish I was free. That's a great. I saw him in Ypsilanti, and then we'll forget it. Yeah, great man.
Yes, he is.
Man.
Yep. So to all 4 of our winners, yep, we have this message for you.
Don't be a douchebag.
Yeah, you got that right. All 4 of you need to stop being violent, traitorous douchebags. You really do, folks. You really do.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Jack, I want to get to this. I want to get to wait a minute here. We just got news. A new poll shows that Gretchen Whitmer holds a lead over Tudor Dixon as Election Day nears. So that's good news.
Good. Did you hear about the poll down in Georgia?
No, I haven't.
The Herschel Walker poll. They took a poll on his popularity. 10% said they would not vote for Herschel. 90% said they would because that was their father.
Well, I thought I don't think he would have any support because he had all those babies aborted.
Yeah, that's
even though he's pro-life. Yeah, really. Oh my God!
What a clown!
I know, it's awful. Jack, I want to finish up with something I talked about on last week's show. I had mentioned, and we gave SpartanNash CEO Tony Sarcasm douchebag of the week last week because he sent out an email to all of his employees telling them to go out and vote and go out and read the proposals on the ballot, which we agree you need to do. But he went a little step further and lied about Proposal 3 and said, it takes away parental rights. No, it doesn't. And just to keep my promise that I made last week of not shutting the up about this, I'm going to go ahead with this. I did a little digging into Tony Sarcasm's political contributions. This is courtesy of the Federal Election Commission's website, fec.gov. As the manager, the CEO of Borden Dairy in Dallas, Texas, back on July 15, 2020, Tony Sarcasm donated $2,800 to WinRed, which is the conservative version of Act Blue. And it was earmarked through WinRed. The recipient information says it was the committee Collins for Texas. This goes to the next contribution, also on July 15, 2020. $2,800 earmarked by Collins for Texas. Recipient information WinRed, which is a hybrid pack with non-contribution account non-qualified. And by the way, they're out of Virginia. So there you go there. Next one. Also, when he was a manager at Borden on October 6, 2018, he donated $2,700 to the Committee for Antonio Sabato Jr. for Congress. Sabato, a Republican from California. Then, as the executive working at Ready Pack Foods in Monrovia, California, on June 23, 2017, Sarcasm donated $500 to the Mitch McConnell for Majority Leader Senate Committee. And then another $1,000 donation on May 17, 2017, to the Grocery Manufacturers Association Political Action Committee. So there you go, $10,000 plus total to conservative causes.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, folks, George Carlin has it correct. Rich people don't give a about you. They never have, and they never will. I don't care how nice they are to you. It doesn't matter. They have their own agenda, and that's what's going to push them. And it's going to push you out.
And there are members walking around within his corporation that have checks with his signature at the bottom that are duped to the ninth degree, thinking he's just a great guy. Listen to George Carlin. Your track on this guy is the absolute verdict. It's empirical. It's evidence.
It is.
These guys can schmooze and bullshit you and give you a drink at the company picnic, but they're using you, and their money goes to foundations that are built to take advantage of you.
Absolutely. All right, Jack, we got to wrap things up here. We are out of time for this week. We'll be back next week. I'm Darren Gibson.
I'm Jack Prince.
Please support independent media, the First Amendment, and a woman's right to choose.
Absolutely.
The stations that carry Southpaws do not necessarily share the opinions expressed on the show. Southpaws is protected by the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution and is copyrighted by Big D Entertainment. All rights reserved.